The morning after the gala. The apartment was silent, too silent, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, filled with all the things that weren't said last night. Leo had left early for a golf game with a client, leaving me alone with the ghosts of the party. I found myself cleaning, scrubbing away at invisible stains on the marble countertop, as if I could wipe away the memory of my mother's forced smile. I needed to find something. Anything that felt like me. I opened the storage closet in the spare bedroom. A place I rarely went. It was a museum of my former life. Tucked away were boxes of college textbooks, old photo albums, and sweaters that smelled like my mother's laundry detergent, not a fancy dry cleaner. My fingers traced the spine of my favorite literature anthology. Inside, tucked between the pages of a well-read poem, was a faded blue envelope. It was addressed to me, in a familiar, sharp handwriting I hadn't seen in 8 years. Kai's. It was the letter he wrote but never sent. The one my mom found a week after he was gone. The one I'd read once and then hidden away, because the truth in it was too sharp to bear. My hands trembled as I unfolded the worn paper. Ella, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Don't try to find me. I need to do this. I know you're in love with Leo, and I can see you're building a life here. But I can't. I can't breathe in this city anymore. Not after last night. I watched his mother look at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. She asked about my little computer hobby. When I told her I was building a new encryption algorithm, she smiled that cold, empty smile and said, "It's so important for young men like you to have a trade." A trade, like I was a plumber or a carpenter. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you and I know what she meant. She was putting me in a box. The smart, little immigrant boy who should be grateful for any scrap he gets. I remembered that night, the first time I'd brought Leo home to meet my family. The first time I'd introduced my brilliant, ambitious brother to the Caldwells. I'd been so nervous, so desperate for their approval. But it wasn't her that broke me. Ella, it was Leo. He just stood there. He heard her. He saw the look on my face. And he said nothing. He just poured his mother another glass of wine. He chose them. Ella, even then, before you even had a ring on your finger. He chose them. I can't build a life around a man who would let his family dishonor mine and not say a word. I won't. I'm going somewhere I can build something so big, so powerful, that they will never be able to look down on us again. I promise you that. Look after Mom. I'm sorry it had to be this way. Kai. I sank down to the floor. The expensive, plush carpet doing nothing to soften the blow of the memory. The letter wasn't just about the past. It was a prophecy, a blueprint for the last 3 years of my life. Leo, standing by silently while his family chipped away at my mother's dignity. Me, staying quiet, pouring the wine, pretending not to see the disrespect. I had become Leo. My phone buzzed on the floor beside me. It was a text from Leo. Mom was actually very impressed with your mother's efforts last night. Said it was a great success. See? Told you it would be fine. I stared at the message. The cheerful words a stark, brutal contrast to the truth written on the page in my hands. He didn't see. He would never see. To him, my mother's humiliation was an effort, and our family's dignity was a small price to pay for a successful party. The cracks inside me widened. A deep, seismic fault line threatening to tear everything apart. I folded the letter, the paper as fragile as my resolve, and slipped it back into the book. But this time, I didn't push it to the back of the closet. I left it on my nightstand. A reminder. For 3 days, Eleanor's command echoed in my ears. Put a stop to this. 3 days of dodging my mother's excited calls about lease agreements and logo designs. Each time my phone rang with her name, a wave of shame washed over me. At my job as a social worker, I spent my days empowering people. I fought for families, connected them with resources, and told them their voices mattered. Then I'd get into my luxury sedan and drive back to a life where my own voice was a whisper. And I was being asked to silence the person I loved most in the world. I was living a lie, and the hypocrisy was eating me alive. On Wednesday, Eleanor summoned me to the estate. She was chairing a planning session for the foundation's new community initiative, and my attendance was, of course, mandatory. I walked through the grand foyer feeling like a prisoner on her way to the gallows. I was supposed to pick up some documents from the study before the meeting. But as I approached the half-open door, I heard voices from inside. Eleanor and Beatrice. Their tones were light, conspiratorial. I paused, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Beatrice, OS. And the photographer from Seattle met is confirmed. He specializes in those gritty, authentic-looking character portraits. The pathos of the immigrant widow story is perfect donor bait. My blood turned to ice. I pressed myself against the wall, hiding in the shadows of the hallway. Eleanor, OS. Exactly. We'll frame it as the Caldwell Foundation, discovering her. We'll be celebrating an unsung hero from the very community we aim to serve. It's the centerpiece of the whole initiative. We'll put her face on the invitations. Her little sandwiches will be the official appetizer of the launch event. Beatrice, OS. A light, cruel laugh. Are we paying her for any of this? Or as the exposure, her compensation? Eleanor, OS. Don't be crass. Beatrice, we are honoring her. She'll be so grateful for the attention, for being welcomed into our world. She won't even think to ask for a fee. It's a perfect symbiosis. We get a compelling narrative to revitalize our donor base. And she gets to feel important for a little while. Ella can handle the arrangements. It is her mother. After all. I stepped back, my hand clamped over my mouth to stifle a gasp. The cold, calculated cruelty of it stole the air from my lungs. This was never about stopping my mother's dream. It was about stealing it. They weren't going to shut her down. They were going to hollow her out. Gut her life's work and her story. And wear it like a costume to their next party. They were going to monetize her struggle, package her dignity, and sell it for donations to prop up their failing foundation. I saw the whole thing flash before my eyes. My mother, beaming with pride on a stage, thinking they were finally seeing her, while the Caldwells saw nothing but a dollar sign, a convenient pawn in their game of social chess. And I was the one who had given them the key. My love for their son was the invitation that let them into her life. And they were planning to rob her blind. I fled. I didn't get the documents. I didn't go to the meeting. I walked out the front door, past the manicured lawns and the silent, imposing statues, and got into my car. I drove without thinking, the pristine suburban streets blurring into a meaningless watercolor of green and gray. I ended up at a scenic overlook. The vast, churning waters of the Puget Sound stretching out before me. The sky was heavy with unshed rain. A perfect mirror for my heart. I was trapped, utterly and completely. Leo was their son. He would never stand against them. My mother was their target. Telling her would break her heart. I was their tool. I pulled out my phone. My fingers trembling. I scrolled through my contacts. My thumb hovering over Leo's name. Then my mom's. Neither could help me. They were part of the cage that had been built around me. My eyes landed on a name I hadn't called in 8 years. A number I didn't even know was still active. Kai. My thumb moved over the keyboard, clumsy with desperation. What could I even say? How could I explain 8 years of silence and 3 years of cowardly compliance in a single text? In the end, there were only 6 words. 6 words that were the absolute, terrified truth. They're trying to erase her. I need you. My finger hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. This was a flare shot into the darkness. With no guarantee that anyone was out there to see it. I took a shaky breath and pressed send. The screen showed 2 small words that felt both like a prayer and a death sentence. Message delivered. For 24 hours, my message floated in a digital void. 24 hours of silence that felt louder than a scream. I had lit the flare. And nothing had answered. Hope began to curdle into a familiar, bitter resignation. I had made a desperate, childish move, and now I was alone with the consequences. I had no idea that halfway across the world, my flare had not just been seen. It had ignited a firestorm. The office is a study in controlled power. Polished concrete floors, a single piece of abstract art on the wall, and a floor-to-ceiling window revealing a sprawling, electric city. A sleek smartphone rests on a vast, empty desk. It buzzes once, the screen illuminating with a single notification. A text from Ella. They're trying to erase her. I need you. A hand enters the frame. wearing an understated but exquisitely crafted watch. The fingers are long, steady. The hand picks up the phone. We see the man from behind, his shoulders broad beneath a perfectly tailored suit. He reads the message, his posture unchanging. The only hint of emotion is the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw. He remains still for a long moment. Then, he swivels in his chair to face a seamless bank of 6 monitors built into the wall. His fingers move across a keyboard with disciplined speed. A blur of motion. The screens, once dark, come alive with complex data streams. Financial statements, SEC filings, property deeds, a tangled web of LLCs and holding companies all bearing one name, Caldwell. He isn't hacking, he's excavating, pulling a rotten foundation into the light. He picks up his desk phone. His movements economical and precise. Kai, OS. Anna, I need a full workup on the Caldwell family of Seattle. Financials, holdings, liabilities, the foundation, the law firm, everything. I want it packaged by the time I land. He hangs up before a response is given. He dials again. Kai, OS. My schedule. Clear it, for the rest of the week. Book me the first flight to Seattle. Private. Int. Caldwell Estate. Kitchen. Day. Eleanor is on the phone with a caterer for Thanksgiving. Her voice dripping with condescension. Eleanor. Into phone. No. Absolutely no dark meat on the table. It's terribly déclassé, and the stuffing must be gluten-free. But for God's sake, don't let it taste gluten-free. She's oblivious, a queen in her castle, completely unaware of the army gathering at her gates. Int. Penthouse office. Night. The man, Kai, stands up and walks to the massive window. His back still to the camera. He looks down at the city below. A river of light and power. His reflection is a dark, sharp silhouette against the glittering vista. I didn't know it yet, but my brother had kept his promise. He had left Seattle to build something so powerful they could never look down on us again. And now, after 8 years of silence, he was coming home, not as the boy they had insulted, but as the man who could, and would, bring their entire world crashing down. The storm was gathering. Thanksgiving at the Caldwells was never about gratitude. It was about performance. The turkey was always perfectly browned but dry. The fine china was cold to the touch. And the conversation was a carefully scripted play of polite questions and pre-approved answers. A text had arrived from Kai that morning. 3 simple words. Accept their invitation. So here we were, my mother and I, the designated props in their holiday theater. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic drumbeat of dread and a tiny, terrifying flicker of hope. My mother sat beside me, a statue of quiet grace, unaware that she was the guest of honor at her own public execution. Leo, desperate to maintain a festive illusion, carved the turkey with forced enthusiasm. Beatrice made a show of complimenting my mother's simple silk blouse. It's so minimalist. My, very on brand for your little shop. The meal dragged on, a slow-motion ordeal of passive aggression and empty pleasantries. Finally, as the untouched pumpkin pie was served, Eleanor tapped her crystal glass with a fork. The ringing silenced the room. She rose to her feet, a regal, predatory smile on her face. Eleanor, on this day of thanks, we have so much to be grateful for. Health, family, and of course, community. This foundation has always believed in lifting up those less fortunate, in giving a voice to the voiceless. Her eyes settled on my mother. It was happening, Eleanor, and in that spirit, I have a special announcement. We are launching a new community initiative to celebrate the city's most inspiring local entrepreneurs. And we have asked our very own My Fam to be its first ambassador. A smattering of polite, confused applause. My mother looked utterly bewildered. Eleanor, her voice dripping with magnanimity. We will feature her, and her charming baguette shop, as the face of our new campaign. A testament to what is possible with a little hard work and the right kind of support. It's a chance for you, to be part of something so much bigger than yourself. The offer hung in the air, sickeningly sweet and laced with poison. She was offering my mother a crown of thorns and calling it a gift. She wanted to pin my mother to a display board like a beautiful, exotic butterfly. a specimen of working-class grit for her rich friends to admire. I watched my mother's face, the confusion giving way to a dawning, horrified understanding. She was being offered the honor of becoming their mascot. Eleanor's smile widened, expecting tears of gratitude. "Well, what do you say?" And at that exact moment, the deep, resonant chime of the front doorbell echoed through the house. The sound was an intrusion, a violation of the carefully orchestrated evening. The butler, looking flustered, went to answer it. A moment of silence from the foyer. Then the sound of footsteps. Not hesitant, not rushed, heavy, confident, deliberate steps on the marble floor. A man appeared in the grand archway of the dining room. He was tall and wore a simple, dark charcoal suit that fit him with the kind of perfection that costs more than a car. He wasn't just dressed in power, he radiated it. It was in his stillness, in the unnerving calm of his gaze as his eyes swept the table, taking in every detail of the scene. The last time I'd seen him, he was a boy, angry and heartbroken. Now, he was something else entirely. A king. My mother made a small, strangled sound, a single word, barely a whisper. "My, Kai?" Leo's head snapped up. His face, which had been a mask of festive cheer, crumbled. The blood drained from it, leaving behind a waxy, gray pallor of pure terror. His wine glass trembled in his hand. Leo, stammering, Mr. Pham? Kai Pham? Of Kyanite Security?" Eleanor looked from Leo's terrified face to the man in the doorway, her confusion curdling into suspicion. Beatrice just stared, her mouth slightly agape. V.O. Leo knew him. Of course, he knew him. Every corporate lawyer in the country knew of Kyanite Security, the almost mythical cybersecurity firm that handled the digital fortresses of nations and half the Fortune 500 list, including the firm where Leo was a partner. The company whose enigmatic founder was a ghost, a legend who never gave interviews and was rumored to be utterly ruthless. A ghost who was now standing in his mother's dining room. Kai's eyes finally met mine. For a fraction of a second, I saw the brother I remembered, the protector, the fighter. Then his gaze shifted to my mother, and his expression softened into something unbearably gentle. Finally, he looked at Eleanor, his face becoming an impassive mask. He took a slow step into the room. "Kai." His voice was calm, almost conversational, yet it cut through the silence like a surgeon's scalpel. "I apologize for the interruption. I heard you were offering my mother a position. I'm here to discuss her counter-offer." The world seemed to slow down. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall sounded like a hammer striking an anvil. Kai's words, "her counter-offer," hung in the air, dense and heavy, sucking all the oxygen from the room. For 8 years, he had been a ghost. In the last 30 seconds, he had become a god. Eleanor was the first to recover, her composure a shield forged in a lifetime of social warfare. "Eleanor, I beg your pardon? Who are you to come into my home and—" Kai, interrupting her, not by raising his voice, but by lowering it, "I'm the son of the woman you were about to publicly exploit. That gives me a unique standing in this conversation." He took another step into the room, his eyes briefly finding my mother's. He gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. "I'm here, I've got you." Then his gaze fell on me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. I felt seen. He walked to the head of the table and placed a slim, impossibly thin tablet on the polished wood surface. He tapped the screen. It glowed to life. "Kai, you mentioned your foundation is about lifting people up. A noble goal, but according to your own public tax filings, your foundation's donations have plummeted by 60% over the last 3 years. Yet, its operating expenses, notably the salaries for its 2 primary board members, have remained remarkably stable." He looked directly at Eleanor and her husband, Harold, who had gone pale. "Eleanor, that is privileged information. Kai, it's a public record. You just have to know where to look. Which brings me to this." He swiped the screen. A complex web of shell corporations and loan agreements appeared. "Kai, LEC Holdings, LLC, the entity you use to manage your family's personal wealth, or what's left of it. You've leveraged every asset, including this house. You've defaulted on 2 major loans in the last 6 months. You aren't rich. Eleanor, you're drowning. You're playing make-believe with other people's money." Beatrice made a small, whimpering sound. Leo looked like he was going to be physically sick. He stared at Kai, not just with fear, but with the dawning horror of a man realizing he's brought a nuclear weapon to a knife fight. "Kai, and that's why you need my mother. This whole community ambassador campaign, it's a lie. A desperate, and I suspect, fraudulent attempt to use her good name to lure new donors and save yourselves. You weren't honoring her. You were using her as collateral." He let the accusation settle. The silence in the room absolute. Then he turned his attention back to the tablet. "Kai, so, here is my mother's counter-offer. You will, of course, decline her generous offer to be your mascot. Instead, the following will happen. Term 1. The Caldwell Foundation will provide a 7-figure, no-strings-attached grant to establish the MyFam Community Business Program. Its mission will be to provide startup capital and mentorship to immigrant and women-owned small businesses in Seattle. My mother will be the sole administrator of its funds." He swiped again. "Kai. Term 2. My sister. This marriage is over. You will not contest the divorce. Any and all assets she brought into this family will be returned, doubled, as compensation for 3 years of systematic emotional distress. My firm's forensic accountants will audit the proceedings. Any attempt to hide assets will be unwise." Harold Caldwell, finding his voice weak and reedy. "This is extortion." Kai, without looking at him. "This is the price of keeping your secrets. The alternative is that I forward this entire dossier to the Seattle Times and the state attorney general. The story would be irresistible. Prominent Seattle philanthropists busted for fraud. Exploiting immigrant widow. Your family wouldn't just be socially ruined. You'd be investigated. You'd lose what little you have left. This isn't extortion. Harold, this is a lifeline. I suggest you take it." All eyes in the room fell on my mother. She had been silent throughout, watching her son dismantle a dynasty with surgical precision. Now, she slowly rose to her feet. The fear was gone. The confusion was gone. In their place was a profound, quiet strength I hadn't seen since my father was alive. She looked at each member of the Caldwell family, her gaze lingering on Eleanor. For 3 years, I came into your home. I smiled when you insulted my food. I made myself small, because I thought that was the price for my daughter's happiness. I hoped one day you would see me. But you don't see people. You see opportunities, stories to sell, things to use." She took a deep breath, and it felt like the whole room was breathing with her. I do not want your apology. An apology from you is worthless. But those other women, the ones who come to this country with a recipe and a dream, just like I did, they deserve a chance. A real chance. The chance you pretended to offer me. So for them, I accept the terms. Not for you. Never for you." Then, she turned to me. Her eyes, glistening with tears, were filled with a fierce, powerful love. And Alara, you, my sweet girl, you are not their project. You are not something to be fixed. You are the best thing I have ever built. Do not ever let them make you forget that." The words broke the dam inside me. The tears I'd been holding back for 3 years finally fell. Kai moved to my mother's side, putting a protective hand on her shoulder. He looked at me, and I stood up, leaving my napkin, my chair, my entire life as a Caldwell behind me. Kai looked at the broken family one last time. "My legal team will be in touch tomorrow morning." Then he put his arm around my mother, took my hand, and together, the 3 of us walked out of that house, leaving the Caldwells to choke on the ruins of their Thanksgiving feast. 6 months after the Thanksgiving that brought a dynasty to its knees. The world felt quiet. The divorce had been swift and silent. The Caldwells, terrified of the ruin Kai held over their heads, had agreed to everything. There were no battles, no bitterness. Leo and his family simply faded from my life like a bad dream you can barely remember upon waking. I left their minimalist apartment, their sterile parties, their heavy silence, and I didn't look back. For the first time in years, the only expectations I had to live up to were my own. My new office is small. The paint is a little chipped, and I can hear the rumble of the bus passing on the street below. It's a world away from the hushed, carpeted corridors of the Caldwell Foundation. And it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It's mine. I started my own social work consultancy, specializing in helping immigrant families navigate the system. I was finally using my voice for a living. Not just in my head. Int. The Saigon Baguette, Day. VO. But the real transformation wasn't mine. It was my mother's. The Saigon Baguette is bustling. Alive with the lunchtime rush. The air smells of freshly baked bread, cilantro, and roasted pork. There's a new, professionally painted sign on the window. Underneath the shop's name, it reads, Home of the My Fam Community Business Program. At a corner table, my mother, Mai, is sitting with a young Somali woman, poring over a business plan. Mai isn't just a shop owner anymore. She's a mentor, a benefactor, a quiet force of nature. She points to a line item on the spreadsheet, her expression both kind and businesslike. Mai, your food cost projections are too low. You have to account for inflation. And you must pay yourself a real wage from day one. Your work has value. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. The young woman nods, her eyes wide with gratitude and respect. My mother had taken the Caldwell's tainted money and washed it clean, turning their guilt into a garden for other people's dreams to grow. Kai walks into the shop, not in a power suit, but in jeans and a simple gray sweater. He looks younger, the hard edges softened. He kisses my mother on the cheek and immediately starts grabbing an apron. Kai, teasing, looks like you're busy building your empire. Mom, need some free labor? Mai, without looking up from the business plan. There's a lunch rush. Go make yourself useful, and wash your hands first. Mr. International Businessman, this is a professional kitchen. He just smiles, a genuine, easy smile, and gets to work behind the counter, taking orders with the same efficiency he once used to dismantle corporate empires. The 8 years of distance between them were melting away, one sandwich at a time. I arrive a few minutes later, and the three of us take a small table in the back as the lunch rush subsides. Kai brings over 3 steaming mugs of tea and a platter of imperfect, slightly misshapen banh mi that he clearly made himself. Ella, laughing, your technique needs work. Kai, my company is worth billions. I think my technique is doing just fine. We eat in a comfortable, happy silence. There are no pretenses here. No passive aggression. No fear. Just the simple, profound joy of being together. Of being home. VO. The Caldwells still exist. I see their names in the society pages sometimes, attached to some new, desperate charity. They got to keep their house, their reputation, their gilded cage. But we got something far more valuable. We got ourselves back. Kai learned that home wasn't a place you run from, but something you build and protect. My mother learned that her worth was never up for negotiation. And I learned that making yourself small to fit into someone else's world is a kind of slow death. Kai raises his mug of tea. To the My Fam Empire. My mom swats his arm playfully, but her eyes are sparkling. To family, she says, her voice full of a hard-won peace. I look at them, my brilliant, fierce mother, my loyal, powerful brother. I look around at the bustling shop, a place built from a recipe and a dream. VO. We found our new foundation, not on the old, cracked ground of their world, but on the simple, solid truth of our own. That real power isn't about the name you carry. It's about the story you refuse to let anyone else write for you. And our story was finally our own. At the heart of this story lies a question many of us face in our own lives. What is the price of admission? So often, to be accepted at a new table, in a new career, a new social circle, or even a new family, we're told, either directly or through whispers, that we must check parts of ourselves at the door. We learn to soften our accents, downplay our humble origins, and quietly tuck away the stories of the sacrifices etched into our parents' hands. We trade our authenticity for acceptance. This story is a reminder that true belonging can never be found that way. The people who require you to shrink yourself are not your people. And the table that doesn't have a seat for your history isn't your table. Your real power doesn't come from conforming to someone else's definition of success. It comes from unapologetically owning the entire, beautiful, and sometimes difficult tapestry of who you are. The the food from your mother's kitchen, the language of your grandparents, the struggles that shaped you. These are not liabilities to be hidden. They are the source of your unbreakable strength. Your story, in its purest form, is your greatest asset. It's not just your legacy, it's your superpower. Your story has power, and we'd be honored if you shared a piece of it in the comments below. Take care of yourselves and each other.